Hello, Western area. My name is Pastor Elizabeth Duffy, and I am creating this video to help to educate some folks about the Western New York area churches in Covenant. Now, of course, I am not an expert in the area. I am only our new moderator starting this year. I've been associate moderator for the past 4 years, but now I'm our moderator, and I had one church ask to give a little bit more information about what WNYACIC is, and so I figured I would share it with all of you. So first, WNYACIC stands for the Western New York Area Churches in Covenant. Now what that is it's really an agreement, a relationship between two associations. The association, which is the Western Association of the New York Conference of the United Church of Christ, and the Western area of the Northeast region of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. So really our two associations work together to combine our resources and to work in covenant with one another. This denominational relationship was made on November 9th of 1986. Fun fact, I was only 2 years old at that time, so it's a pretty long-lasting relationship. So what do we do? Now, you'll find a lot of this information on our website, so I'll be sure to share that with you now, which Andy does a wonderful job with. What we do is we covenant in community to teach and to support one another. We share financial resources, physical resources, and spiritual resources so that we may all be stronger in pastoral, justice, and witness service to Western New York. I think that sounds pretty awesome. Now, while the UCC's Western Association and the DOC's Western Area hold the ministerial standing for the pastors and the denominational standing for the churches, together we all work in covenant to be able to do the work of the Western area so that we can truly work in agreement with one another and support one another. And I think that today, that's probably more important than ever. So I know one of the questions that a lot of people always want to ask is money. You're like, what happens with money? You know, why do we give this money? Tell me more about money. So I'm not a financial person, but I'm going to give you the best information that I can about some of the money questions that you might have. Now, the first thing that you might know is that in November, we voted at our area meeting that we were going to increase our covenant shares starting this year by $2 per person. This is the first increase that has happened in like 20 to 30 years. I didn't get an exact date, but in a really long time. And the reason why we decided to increase is because sadly, as many churches decrease in size, so does the amount of funding that comes into the association. And there's a lot of wonderful things that we want to fund. And so that's what the request was for. That's why we asked for our covenant shares to be increased by $2 per person so that we could have some more money that does come in that helps us to do the ministry that we want and that we need to do. Because really, you know, we can't pay for the things that we want to do unless we do have the resources. Now, I'll tell you that I happen to serve one of the larger churches in our area, and I know that I was one of them who was really in favor of adding this increase because we are financially able to give more, and we would like to give more because we want to make sure here at Zion that we're not just doing our own ministry, but that we're helping other churches do ministry as well. So for us, it's really important to also make sure that we're able to give what is asked from us. If you and your church are not able to make that increase, if you're not able to give $2 more per person, that's okay. These are covenant shares. It's a requested amount, but you give what you can give. If you are financially strapped, especially during COVID times, then you only give what you need to give. And I'll also let you know that we were thinking of a whole bunch of ideas for resources that are going to come out to you this year to try to help you, but do know that give what you can give. We know that all churches are in different situations. So this is not dues exactly, it's a requested covenant share in order to be part of the covenantal relationship. So now let's think about the money that does come in. Where does it go? It's always a good question to ask. Well, we fund some really amazing things. We fund Plymouth Crossroads and Senior Wishes and the Center for Christian Growth, which, by the way, I hear has a new online Sunday school program. We fund Dunkirk Camp and Conference Center, which I know a lot of our youth and kids love. We fund youth mission trips and Western area youth retreats. And those are some great mission trips that we're able to plan, and Krista Ulrich puts on these amazing retreats, and we are able to help through funding with that. Of course, this year we don't know how much we'll be able to do, but in the years to come we'll do even more. We fund the network of religious communities, so much that we actually cover more than what they ask for all of our churches to give, so that every single church is really a part of the network of religious communities because of our giving as the Western New York area churches in covenant, the funds that we give them. We also fund for Synod, UCC Synod, and DOC annual conferences, because these are really important. Since we hold our denominational identity as churches, we need to be able to participate in the wider church. And so we fund for our delegates to go to Synod. We fund any delegates who need to go to annual conference. We make sure to have funds available for that. Of course, things are going to look different starting this year. At least UCC Synod is planning on going virtual. But still, I assume that there will still be requests that, for finances in order for people to even virtually attend those conferences. We also fund the Vineyard, though sadly a couple years ago we did have to cut it down to 4 editions a year instead of the 1 every month. And so 4 times a year you can get a copy of the Vineyard, which has all this information from all of our churches where people can write in different articles and add different prayer lists. And so that's another wonderful resource that we're able to fund. We are able to fund the Church and Ministry Committee, which is important for the United Church of Christ because that's what holds really our pastors in good standing. And they also make sure that we have all of our boundary training that is done. And so they need funds for their training and to make sure that they have everything taken care of that we need. We also fund our Department of Local Church Ministries. And so this is a pretty cool thing. I don't know if you've heard that the Department of Local Church Ministries, that they have grant money available. So if you haven't heard this, pay close attention. So we have a Department of Local Church Ministries, and what they do is they'll give grants to churches from our money that comes in. They give grants to churches that have new ministry ideas. I will tell you about 8 years ago. And so I've been here for 10, almost 11 years. So this was about 8 years ago when here at Zion, our consistory was talking about feeding people here in this church from the community and not just going to other places to feed people who are in need, but to start a program like this here in our own church. Of course, there was a lot of, uneasy feelings about what this would be like to have all of these different people come in, people in need. And so there were some uneasy feelings. We weren't sure how this was going to go, but I thought it would be something that would be really great for our church to begin. And so we actually applied for a grant from the Department of Local Church Ministries, and we received a small grant. But that small grant gave us the courage to get started. And now, even during COVID times, we have drive-through dinners during COVID times where people come up and we hand them their box of dinner. But even during COVID times, we're feeding 130 to 150 people a month. And that all started because of a one-time grant that we received from the Department of Community Ministries. So if you have a program that you'd like to begin, there is grant money available. We also have a secretary, and we've been blessed with Kathy Najik, who retired last year, and now Michelle Kemp, who's doing a wonderful job. So we've been blessed with wonderful and capable secretaries who are able to do the work and to take over all the email correspondence that comes in. Because I'll tell you, I only volunteer to be moderator, and same as our volunteer secretary on the council, and we don't have the time and the energy to be able to handle everything that comes in for the area. So that's why it's also really important that we have a secretary who can handle that. We do all that I just listed on a really small amount of money that comes in. And so it's amazing. I think it's quite wonderful, and I can't wait to see what else we can begin to do in the future. But do you know that we do even more that doesn't involve funding? So our council meets together every month, besides when we take breaks. We took a break in December. I think we all needed a little break. We've been meeting virtually through COVID, but we do even more than just what is financially requested upon us. So the council meets and we have these discussions and we try to figure out how to help other churches in the area, how to make sure that we're being the best resource. I know I'll tell you, I have so many ideas. I'm the kind of person that's always coming up with new ideas. So I have a lot of ideas to help other churches in this new year. But one conversation that came up after a council meeting in the fall, as we were meeting virtually because of COVID, One conversation was that a pastor of a smaller church mentioned that with Christmas approaching that they didn't know what they were going to do, because all that they were doing was they were putting together a sermon each week and they were sharing that with their congregation, but that's all that they had for worship. They didn't have any ability to play music. And with Christmas approaching, that they were really going to need to figure out how to put together some sort of virtual Christmas service. And so I talked to my musicians, and my musicians, we have 2 different music teams here, and all of my musicians were like, oh my goodness, they can use any of our music. We're more than happy to supply music to other churches as well. They really had a desire to help not just our own church, but other churches to be able to worship as well. So what we did was we created an online file, and in this online file, I was able to upload a bunch of my church musicians' music, a lot of which we even had just from last year. All the Christmas music we pulled from services from last year. And also once the UCC CD came, I know that I uploaded their music as well. And I know we used some of the UCC's music and not just our own because we appreciated it. And so churches were able to download that music. And this was a small fee that even I just covered. I didn't even have the church cover to have this online storage. And so this was something that was done for very little money. And all the music that we put up there was actually public domain. So since my church musicians gave permission, anybody was welcome to use this music. Some of our songs had up to like 38 downloads. And this week alone, I've received 3 emails with people asking that we continue to have music available. So I'm going to include other music, and other churches are able to then add their music if they have their musicians' permission. And I'm going to give information about how you can stream music and what you need to do if you want to do something like that. But we're going to continue to have music available. That should be out hopefully by the end of this week, so that churches can continue to use music from sister churches so that we can all continue to worship virtually for as long as we need to until we're able to safely all be back in our own sanctuaries. So again, that's another thing that all came up out of conversations just between pastors that happened while we were virtually meeting. And so that conversation happened, and then we were able to put these resources out. And I'm telling you, 3 different emails this week came to me asking for this to continue. So that shows that even just having brains come together for the council can do wonderful work. There's also other things that we can do. I know our church is planning a lay leadership training for pastoral ministry where we're going to hire somebody to come in. And so we're thinking about how can we make this free and available to other lay ministers in our sister churches. So not everything that we do on behalf of the Western area costs money. Sometimes we're able to do things in ways that are free to you, and you get to utilize that because you are part of this covenant and because you're a part of this relationship. So I hope that what you see is that the Western New York Area Churches and Covenant does a lot more than just hold our denominational identity, but it also creates what I think of as a sistership of churches. I know whenever I talk to my church about other churches in the area that are in the Western Area Churches and Covenant, I call them all our sister churches. So if you belong to a different church and you're watching this, you belong to one of our sister churches. We're not in competition with one another at all, but instead we are in covenant with one another. We're here to support one another. We're here to help one another. If you have needs, if you right now are trying to figure out how to ministry through COVID times and there are things that you just don't know how to do, if you need more music, if you need more resources, if you need anything like that, don't hesitate to reach out, because somehow we will try to help you, because that's what we do. We work in covenant with one another. And as you know, I mean, yes, I am the pastor of this church, but my time with the council and with the area, it's all time that I just donate. Just like all of our council members, we all donate our time to be a part of the Western New York Association Churches and Covenant and to help churches that might need some extra help too. Same as all of our committees. We have so many committees that do wonderful work, and our committee on ministry, they do such great work as well. We have all of these committees that are full of people who are donating their time. And so if you're watching this video, especially if you're still watching after it's almost over, and you're thinking, well, I'd like to get involved in the area. I would like to be more in communication with our sister churches. I would like to work more closely to find out what I can do to help the area. If you're wondering that right now, let me know. send me an email, send any of us on the council an email, and we will find out ways to get you involved. We will get you on a committee. They're all meeting virtually right now anyways. We will get you on the council. We will help you to fill a vacant spot so that all together our minds can come together, our ideas can come together, and we can do greater ministry on behalf of the Western New York area churches in covenant. That's the whole point of this. We're in covenant with one another. We're in relationship with one another. We share resources, financial and spiritual, in order to help one another. I know that I'm really encouraged when I talk to other pastors and when I find out how we can work together. I hope that you, whether you're a pastor or a layperson, that you are encouraged to get even more involved with the area, even during COVID times, because right now we do so virtually. God bless you all. Have a healthy and a happy new year, and I hope to see you soon.